Hi there.
Hey, how are you?
How you doing?
Good.
Good.
I'm Yann, yes. Happy to receive you in the French Toy Rendez-Vous number 19, James. Thanks a lot for
Thank you.
joining me. Um,
Absolutely.
very nice to meet with you for this interview. And let's start. James. What we do usually in this interview, we like to talk about the childhood of the guest and to understand a bit who you are, where are you born, what was your childhood, what kind of toys were you playing, what are your hobbies, that kind of stuff.
Okay. So, yeah, let me know. Are we live now or
We are live. We are live, James. We
all
are live.
right. So, I'll say bonjour. Uh
Bonjour, James.
yep, je m'appelle James Zahn.
Yes,
I am editor-in-chief of the Toy Book, which is North America's leading trade publication covering the toy industry. It's been around since 1984. We just started our 40th volume. The cover is hanging on the wall behind me.
okay.
And I essentially live toys, games, entertainment, licensing, all of the things that go together. Been in the industry for a while, and you mentioned wanting to know a little bit about my childhood. I grew up largely in the south suburbs of Chicago in
Chicago, yes.
Illinois.
Illinois.
I spawned from a town called Chicago Heights and sort of kicked around that region as a boy. I was into a lot of the stuff that the kids of the late 70s, early 80s were into. Loved Star Wars,
Star Wars.
Transformers, He-Man. My favorite show, Knight Rider, David
Yes.
Hasselhoff. Loved the Hoff, and really just had a lot of adventures, a lot of imaginative play. I always say that if I had to pick a singular favorite toy from that era, I would say it would probably be my Big Wheel, which
Uh-huh.
I had the original version from Lewis Mark's Toy Company.
Uh-huh.
And Big Wheel, of course, is back now. Schilling makes Big Wheel now, but that brand changed hands many, many times over the past 40, 50 years. But I wore mine out on at least one occasion and had to get replacements. But then I really shifted, from the outside to the indoor play, very much into the imaginative side of things. I used to take my GI Joes outside and play on the swing set and
Yes.
pretend that that was their base because I didn't have the play set that was like their headquarters. So the swing set in the backyard was
Uh-huh.
the command center, the base of operations for all the international missions they were doing. And I was into Hot Wheels, and then I really played a lot with my sister, and she was into things that are also from that area: Strawberry Shortcake, Rainbow Bright. Played with all of it, cross-pollinated the toy box.
You have done a lot
Um,
in the toys. So, and what are your hobbies? We will talk after about what you have done, your studies, your job. But what do you like to do in your life apart the toy business?
so I'm married. I have a wife. I have two daughters. A lot of family stuff going on right now. My kids, I have one tween. I have one teen. So a lot of my life is devoted to what they're doing more
Uh-huh.
so than me. I do like to play music when I can. I've been a musician for a bit, and I don't get to play as much as I'd like to, but I do like doing that. I like to get crafty. I'm actually very big into gardening. So
Uh-huh.
when the weather strikes here, which as we're speaking this morning, yesterday was sunny and the grass was starting to be green. Well, today it's snowing again here in
Oh,
northern Illinois. I live 50 miles north of Chicago at this
okay.
point, um, but it's snowing here. But when the weather breaks, I'll really be doing a lot of gardening. So folks will see me out in the yard here.
Okay. So when you have been growing, James, in the suburb of Chicago, have you been studying a bit, or what have you been doing when just before working?
This morning,
No, no.
what have I been doing before working?
When you were young, you grew up
Okay.
In Chicago suburb. You told me about your experiences with toys,
Yep.
and when you have been growing, and when you were, let's say, 18 years old after the school, what have you been doing? Have you been studying,
Yeah. So
working?
what I ended up doing, I had a very non-linear career path. And in my high school years, I actually moved to Iowa for 4 years.
Iowa,
So I
yes.
graduated high school from Davenport North in Davenport, Iowa. It was in the Quad Cities region. And I was out there, and what happened was I was struck with the entrepreneurial spirit very early in life. So
Yes.
as a child, I had a newspaper route. I sold subscriptions, I delivered the papers, I even sold greeting cards door to door. I always wanted to sort of go bigger, to break out of different things. And by the time I was about 15, sort of in the era, and you got to keep in mind there was no YouTube, there was
No.
no internet. What I did when I was 15, we had something here in the States, and I don't know if there was something similar in France, but we had cable access, which was you could do local television yourself and make a show
Uh-huh.
if you had the means to put it together and met certain check boxes, so to speak. They would run your show on a local channel. So
Uh-huh.
as a 15-year-old, I decided I wanted to do a variety show
All
that
right.
was partially news and sketch comedy and partially music.
Uh-huh.
So my teen years from say 15 to 18, I was doing all the normal things that kids do. I was in high school. I worked a job after school. My first job officially was at a Hy-Vee grocery store. So I
Okay.
was working in the dairy department there.
Mm-hmm.
I was learning to play music and playing in a band, but I
Uh-huh.
was also doing this TV show. And what that did, and I have to tell this story because what I did when I was 15 shaped who I am now and
Uh-huh.
led me to sitting here in this chair because I was so into the idea of entertainment media, journalism, etc., that I took a position at school where I was writing for our school paper. I
Okay.
was also editing. I was one of the editors on our yearbook.
All right.
But in the meantime, I was doing this television show, and I decided I wanted to have real guests, and I wanted to start with music.
Yeah.
So my favorite band, the band Faith No More. I don't know if you're
Oh,
familiar
yes,
with
I know
those
the name.
guys.
Yes. Yes.
Um, they were coming to Davenport to put on a concert, and I'm like, I want to get them on my little cable show that we're shooting on the big VHS camera.
Uh-huh.
So I took out one of their albums on CD and I looked for the record label. And at the time, you had to call 411 and ask for the phone number of who you wanted to reach. So I'm in Iowa and I'm at 411. Hey, can you tell me who to talk to? How do I call Slash Records in Los Angeles, California? And how do I call Reprise Records? Do you have this number? And they gave it to me.
Uh-huh.
So I call those folks and I'm like, yeah, I'm looking for a manager or a publicity contact for the band Faith No More. And they're like, well, they're repped by a publicist that's in New York. This
Uh-huh.
guy, Mark Satloff, at this company called Surefire Media. So I call this guy, cold call him, and I'm like, hey, I'm 15. My name's James, and I'm doing a show, and I'd love to have this band on there. And for whatever reason, he said yes. So fast forward to September 22nd, 1992. I'm with the five guys from Faith No More as a kid that has never conducted an interview with anyone, and I'm doing this on TV. So that started,
That's
and
wonderful.
and the funny sidebar to that is that media company, that that PR agency, Surefire Media, we work with them now at the Toy Book because they
Okay.
still exist and represent clients in the toy and entertainment space.
Uh-huh.
So how cool is that? That something that was 32 years ago
Yeah.
that happened, and there's still that relationship. So that actually kick-started me into having other bands on my show. So I had Megadeth, I had White Zombie, I had all these people talking to this kid in Iowa, and to me, I sort of was doing YouTube before YouTube by
Yes,
about 20
you were
years.
definitely.
Um, so that segued into me playing music myself. I was in a variety of bands. I did go to community college for a little bit. Then I moved back to Illinois, and it became pretty apparent that I was very good on the business side of things.
Uh-huh.
And when I came back into Illinois, I ended up taking a job with another grocer here. But then I flipped it. I saw that Walmart had some opportunities. So I went and worked for Walmart for a couple years. And
Yeah.
I learned a lot about merchandising, fundamentals of retail, all of this, and very much enjoyed it. And I actually met my wife, who is my wife now,
At Walmart.
at Walmart. Yes. So from there, I did what people do sometimes, and I was doing really good, but a headhunter got me, and I went to work for the competition. I went to Kmart in their super center division. They paid me a lot more money to
Uh-huh.
come over there and go through their management training program, and then I went into their store build program. So I was setting up super centers, and I was working partially on the road and sometimes out of their headquarters in Troy, Michigan. And from there, I decided, you know what? This is good. It's a good life, but I still really want to be creative. And I quit and I went back to film school.
Mm-hmm.
So I took film classes and was still doing music, was still writing. And at that point, then I did need to make some money. So I took a specialty retail gig with the Musicland Group in their Sam Goody division. So I learned a lot more too about the retail and the merchandising side of the business. And I was very, very interested in consumer insights, consumer habits, how to make great statements at retail. So that was all sort of working together. But eventually I veered off. More than 20 years ago now, and I went into entertainment, and I was acting, playing music. I wrote comic books. But at the same time, you have this intersection of licensing and toys
Yeah.
coming into all of that. And that spawned into a whole new world where I did take a gig for a couple years as director of new media development for Fangoria Entertainment. They had the Fangoria magazine and Starlog at the time. And even with that, we had this music connection. We were putting on live events, got to work with bands like Slipknot on a big event in Las Vegas.
Uh-huh.
And again, there's all of this licensing and entertainment and toy stuff coming in. So I start meeting more folks on the toy side of the business and becoming more of a voice on that side. Started my own publication, the Rockfather magazine, started delving
So
into
the Rock
all of
Father is
these
about music.
worlds.
The Rock Father is about music, right?
No, it was at the time, I looked at it as a digital extension of myself.
Okay.
So it started when we had my wife and I had our first daughter, and she was like, you know, you're making all this money for other people and their publications. You should do something for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
And at the same time, there was a lot going on with in the parenting space where more fathers were becoming more vocal and more visible on the parenting side of the pop culture psyche. So I started telling stories about parenting, but was bringing in these other verticals like music, movies, toys, all of this together. Even my gardening, I was sharing that, but it became apparent very, very quickly that there was really a great connection with me and the toy business. So I became more friendly with some folks. I took some consulting gigs
Yeah.
and consulted on toy lines for a couple different companies. Really started writing more about the business side of toys because I thought it was interesting in a way that the general public, the consumer might, in a lot of ways, the way they look at entertainment. They might not make movies, but they want to know what's happening behind the scenes. I thought folks might want to know how the toy industry works. So I was reaching a different audience. And my music kicked in for some reason there. Apologies. We get a little bit of the rock swinging in. But what ended up happening is when Toys R Us went bust in
Yes.
the US, I really ended up sort of by accident at the center of that because I was doing a deep dive on all of the paperwork related to it and really started just getting a lot of media coverage myself. Like this guy, James, the Rockfather, he's got details on Toys R Us that the big media outlets haven't reported on and things like that. That ended up overlapping with my introduction to adventure media and events. Folks like Marissa Silva here and Jackie Breyer and Lori Schacht, the owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I started working for the consumer side of that business in
Okay.
2016, which is
16.
called the Toy Insider.
Mm.
So the Toy Insider is our consumer publication.
All right.
And I was working on a contract basis. I was just a hired gun, if you will. And
Yeah.
then I did a little bit on the trade side with the toy book, but all as a hired gun. And as time went on, it became quite obvious that there was something more there. And they started trying to recruit me, come work for us full time. And originally I said no. And I was offered the editor in chief position of the toy book. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that, but maybe we'll do something else. So ultimately, I did come on full time eventually as a senior editor. Then I became deputy editor, and now I'm editor in chief of the toy book. So
So
that's the
where is
Cliff's
the head
Notes
office,
version.
James? Where is the head office?
What's that?
Where is the head office?
It is in New York. It's in
So
Manhattan
you have to
on
travel
7th
to New
Avenue.
York? You have to travel to New York?
Very infrequently at this point. When I started, we thought maybe I'd go to the office once every 5 weeks or so, but it became very clear that we didn't have to do that. And I was already set up to work remotely because I had in past jobs, like when I was working for Fangoria magazine, that was also a company in New York. And I was working from my home office in Illinois. And it just ended up being a good mesh. And it was like, well, the travel expense and the time
Yeah.
doesn't really make sense if you can do this job at home. And of course, this was pre-pandemic. So we were doing that before the rest of the world really turned that corner. But yeah, our head office is right across the street from Fashion Institute of Technology, FIT or FIT as folks call it. And we have a great crew there. But now the way the business works too, I'm not the only remote guy on the team. We have someone
Right.
in California, we got somebody in Connecticut, Philly. It really is like a larger amount of tethers out to the different areas of the country.
Okay. Are your toy news really focusing on the North American market, or is it more global?
So interestingly, when the toy book started 40 years ago, there were writings that they were looking at the team at the time was looking at a North American scope, but at some point it had veered very US. I look at it as North America and particularly have tapped into some opportunities north of the border in Canada. I'm also very interested in what's going on in Mexico.
Okay.
But so North American focus because we're here, but we do go internationally. So my publisher, Jackie Breyer, and our executive director of sales marketing, James Devon, we call him JD, they were both at Spielwarenmesse in Germany this year.
Mhm.
So the Nuremberg trip has become more and more important.
Okay.
We, as a publication, we're a member of ITMA, which is
Mhm.
the International Toy Magazine Association.
Yeah.
So we do have those allies. I'm very friendly with John at Toy World in the UK.
Sure.
Um, and a lot of these folks we connect a few times a year, and we do see each other at events. And I think what you're going to see from us going forward, especially now that the trade show landscape has changed so drastically in recent years, that the toy book will have a more international focus starting in 2025.
All right.
And I can't give you too many details, but I can tell you that work is already underway and started. So there will be some opportunities there. But I think at the end of the day, North America is always going to be the home base and our primary audience. And of course, even a little bit deeper, the US audience is always going to be number one for us. North America second, and the world at large would be the third priority. But toys is a global business, so we have to report on different things. Just like a few years ago, I can't tell you how many stories I had to write about U.S. and China and tariffs. We have to stay on the pulse of play, as we say.
Okay. Interesting, James. Thanks a lot for all the informations. You have a strong background. You have done a lot of things. Really, really nice. Let's talk about your link to France, to my home country. What do you know about France? Have you ever published something about the French toy market, or have you ever traveled to France? What do you know about us?
All right. So the most immediate thing is that my wife is obsessed with France. She's been asking me to take her there for 25 years, and it hasn't happened yet, but I did just renew my passport. So that is on the table.
It's on the
We
plan.
may make that trip. We have a couple French paintings in our house, and she is very, very into the culture. Of course, we know that strong relations between France and the US going back many years. You can't talk about the two without saying, hey, Statue of Liberty, the symbol of America has a French lineage.
Yes.
In high school, I did take French class.
All right.
Unfortunately, 30 plus years later, I have forgotten a good portion of it.
Yeah.
I do, as I said at the beginning of the call, I can say bonjour, I can introduce myself. I could probably ask you for a few things. There was a kid when I was in elementary school. There was an exchange program. There was a boy named Etienne that had come and visited, and that was probably my first interaction with a person that was actually from France.
Uh-huh.
So I know enough about the basics and the culture and a little bit of that, but have not been there. I do think I will eventually go there with my wife. If I don't, she will be very displeased with me, and we need to make that happen. But the French toy business is something that I have covered very lightly because I'm not as in tune to it. So I'm always interested in learning more, which of course is your wheelhouse.
Okay, so what will we do, James? You know, I'm writing for a few years for Global Toy News, for Toy World, or different toy magazine, and I will publish with you too if you want. Next time I'm doing
All
something
right.
on French toy market, I will send you.
I think you just asked me for a job on the on the show. But yeah, I'm totally into it. You mentioned Global Toy News, Richard Gottlieb,
Yes.
rest in peace. Old friend, somebody that really embraced me when I started in the business. That really leaned into collaboration, and I used to do end of year podcast with Richard and with Chris Byrne, with John Balch, and
Hmm?
it was a good time.
Yeah,
So
I know. I was listening to your podcast. Very good, very interesting, James. As a fan of heavy metal, do you know that we have a famous festival in France, in the western part of France, close to Nantes, called in Clisson? Do you know about that?
I do know that the French audience has a
Hellfest.
voracious appetite
It's
for
called Hellfest.
Hellfest.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a very
And
international
I'm
festival.
familiar with Gojira. You know
Yes,
that band?
I know the name,
Big
yes.
metal band from France and very popular internationally. So yeah, there's I would say the European audience as a whole feels so much more just like interested and invested in music than audiences in the US, and especially heavy music. There have been more like larger festivals here in the States recently,
Hmm.
but it's not like they're one-offs, and it's not like it is over there where you have like Wacken and Download Festival and all of these things, where all of the countries, France, Germany, UK, they all have these massive, massive festivals, and we just don't necessarily have something on that scale here for
Yeah.
that type of music.
Mm. Very good, James. Thanks a lot, for this interview, for all what you mentioned. Very inspiring. Thanks a lot for joining. That's for the French Toy Rendezvous number 19. To end the show, James, if you want to do something, well, we can end the show. What would you like to do to end the show?
I'd like to just say, everybody, hey, we're all in the business of play. It's a ton of fun. There are far worse industries we could be in. And I think that it's just great how now we can all connect, especially in forums like this one. I mean, we connected on LinkedIn. And I would
Yes.
say the toy industry is on LinkedIn. There are connections being made there that are made digitally. Then we get on Zoom, and then eventually we'll see each other in person. So I'm always open to meeting new people, hearing new ideas, bringing new voices into the toy book, of course, and telling those stories. So I'm always interested in hearing compelling stories and bringing that to the masses. And anybody that wants to get in touch, absolutely, please look me up, and we'll make something happen.
Okay, James, thanks a lot. We keep in touch. You will hear more about me next time. If I have to publish some things, I'll let you know. And
Absolutely.
nice to meet you in real life next time in Nuremberg, where I am intending to. And well,
Yes, that is. I am. Mark my words. I'm trying to get there for next year. That is my plan. I have not been over there yet, and I need to do so. So
and if you come with your wife in France, let me know. Perhaps we can join. I can show you a few things.
absolutely, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, James. Thank you. Have a good
All right,
weekend. This will
you
be
too.
live, on in LinkedIn in about 10 days.
All right, take care. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye. Bye.